Man, I've been asking myself all day. I can't get this out of my head. Who am I? Who am I to stand up here and to talk to you about our God, who is so great, who's done so much for me? Um, just this Friday, I was coming back to Huntington from Silver Lake. I was in the car by myself and listening to some worship music, and um, I couldn't keep the tears out of my eyes when I was thinking about where I was just 123 days ago today. Um, I was laying in a room alone on a bed, uh, dead quiet, and I hadn't slept in over 100 hours. I was tired. I couldn't close my eyes, because I'm just going to be brutally honest. There's demons tormenting me. I couldn't close my eyes. I was afraid to. And, I just couldn't help but weep to think where God has brought me in just 123 days. It's not a period of years. Some people, you go to AA meetings and whatever, they got to work for years to get to where they're at. This is 123 days, and I'm completely restored. I'm renewed. Amen. Praise God. Praise God. I'm going to rewind a little bit here, though, and like I said, I'm going to be brutally honest. I've lived a life that's a little different than other people, so I'm going to be truthful about some things, and I just want everyone to know that I'm not boasting about them. They're things that I'm deeply ashamed of, especially my drug use. Some people, they want to exaggerate about their drug use. They think I don't know what they think, but if anything, I would, I'd be tempted to get up here and candy coat it a little bit, but that's not what I'm going to do. But I'm going to start back when I was a kid. I was raised by a single mother until I was 5. I'd like to think I had an okay childhood, pretty much. My mom got married to my stepdad, and that's where I guess some of my problems started coming. Not sure what my deal was that young as a kid, but basically I just was in rebellion against my father. He's a good man, a good Christian man. He loved me and adopted me as his own son. I love him very dearly. He always did what was right by me. He was always there for me. He always took the time to teach me right from wrong and to try to tell me about God, but throughout my childhood, I just was in rebellion against him. We moved from Huntington when I was after 5th grade. We went to Fishers down by Indianapolis, and it was kind of a little culture shock going from little Huntington to a big city. And I went from regular neighborhood kid here to I wasn't fitting in, and people made fun of me. And just I was kind of miserable as a junior high student. I just didn't know where I belonged, and people didn't like me, and so I started to isolate myself. I started to cause trouble in school. Very troubled kid, and I think one time I had like 42 detentions in like a span of 30 days. I don't know how I did that, but but I mean, innocent enough things at this time, talking in class or being a smart aleck, And again, I'm just going to reiterate that my parents were good parents. They loved me. I had a good home, and this was all, just me rebelling. I'm not. That's probably a whole nother talk of where that all started. But we ended up moving again to Alabama. Huntsville, Alabama. My dad, we moved around a lot because his work. So, but I go down there, and it was kind of cool for a minute, kind of exciting because I'm the new kid, and all the people are all curious, so they're treating you good for a minute. And Huntsville, Alabama, that was the first place where I experienced racism. And I would be called names and made fun of because my skin was a little darker. And, I was, like 12 then. And so I didn't really understand it at first. And I just didn't get it, I didn't even know what some of them names meant. I was like, man, I've never heard that one before. Okay. I know why you're so mad at me. But, eventually I got around to where I knew what they meant, and I just didn't understand how people could harbor that much hate against me. And again, I'm just building up all this stuff inside. And the first time I smoked marijuana was when I was 12. I was too scared to breathe it in, but that's when that started. We moved back to Huntington after that, and it wasn't the same when I got back. People are having sex and stuff in middle school and doing drugs, and so I tried to fit in, as all I wanted to do was fit in. And so I started smoking cigarettes, started smoking weed, and I started drinking at probably 13, 14. And that's when my parents really kind of started to notice a change in me. And they started to try to correct my behaviors as best they could, and that just furthered my rebellion. I was expelled from my first year of high school for possession of a firearm. This is when things started to get a little more serious, and my dad, being the Christian he tried to correct me with scripture, and I just remember this verse was poking out to me. I'm just going to kind of paraphrase it. You all probably know it, but Jesus says, if you're not with me, you're against me. If you're not gathering with me, you're scattering. And, just all this bitterness and hate that I had against my father, I basically said, okay, God, then I'm against you. And this is where things started to go a little crazy. At this point, I was isolating myself. I didn't come out of my room much as a teenager. I was usually grounded, which I was all mad about that. But thinking back on it, I wouldn't have come out anyways. I'd have been sitting in there unhappy and bitter. And I guess one of the things that's standing out to me is I guess at this point I was hungry for something else, even though I didn't think I was. I needed God at this point. I was broken inside, but I turned somewhere else. I used my parents' credit card, so I stole money from them, and I got online and I ordered some witchcraft books. And so they come in the mail. This is my freshman year in high school. And, I snagged them out of the mail before my dad could get them. And so I'm up in my room, and I just remember I was scared to death doing this stuff. And, I got up at night and read a couple things. Nothing happened until a couple weeks later. I woke up. It was probably 3 in the morning. I remember I could see my alarm clock, and I couldn't move. I was completely aware of my surroundings, couldn't move a muscle. I could open my eyes and look around, and I would just hear this laughter, and I could sense a presence moving around the room, and there was a heavy weight on top of me. And I had a few of these experiences, and the world calls this sleep paralysis. They got a name for everything, But and they try to treat it with like something crazy, like Special K or something, another crazy. Yeah, But in my rebellion, I invited those things into my life, and that's where I really started my downward spiral. I was in and out of juvenile detention centers my whole teenage years. I was not around for very much of my teenage years. I got 2 little brothers and a little sister, and I did not treat them right. Changed all their diapers. I was there their whole childhoods. I was the babysitter, and I'm deeply regretful for the way I treated them sometimes because of how bitter I was. I went to White's for a while. I got out of White's. It was good. It helped me. It made me, I guess, blissfully ignorant. I guess I was sober, and I thought I was doing good. I ran off with some girl when I turned 18 to Richmond, and her family took advantage of me and my money. And, I learned the lesson the hard way when Mom and Dad told me not to. But anyways, I got tired of that life I was living too, and so I decided that I was going to join the military, mostly to get away. And so I went to the recruiter's office, and they talked me into it, gave me the whole blood, guts, and glory speech, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. So about a month after that, I was in Fort Benning, Georgia, at infantry school, and still a bitter young man, just trying to fit in, searching for love. And I found that there people would accept me simply through my works, and so I excelled. God blessed me. I'm not the strongest, I'm not the fastest, but God blessed me with some abilities to where I was an exceptional soldier when I applied myself. So I went National Guard. So when I got done with infantry school, I come back home and went to college, left the girl that I was with, and when I got to college, I decided that I'm still empty inside, and so the beer pong on the weekends turned into I'm drinking beer every night, and then eventually that turned into I'm drinking beer in the morning when I get up for PT. I get up and slam a few beers, and then I go to PT. But it was cool at that time because I could smash a few beers and go run in the A group. I could still do it. So I didn't think it was a problem. Eventually everything caught up to me. I was selling drugs. I was skipping my classes. I'd just go and take the tests and stuff because I did okay on the tests. But it was like my third semester. The second half of my second year, I went in to sign for classes, and they said, hey, here's $1,000 in parking tickets you have. You need to pay these for you sign up for classes. And, me being a little hothead I was, I said, you get it off the roof. I'll see you guys later. So there went my college. And I didn't really think much of it. So I come back to Huntington, and I think I just sat around and started drinking for a while. Started drinking pretty heavily. Things progressed. I ended up with another girl, and this is a pattern that I'm ending up with women that aren't Christians, and not to say that I didn't ruin their lives in certain aspects, but it just is not good. Not to be unequally yoked. Pastor Jim tell you all about that. We just were talking about that. That was one of my big downfalls. And at this time, I'm in the 76th Infantry Brigade, and we're training to go to Afghanistan. And somehow I got it in my head that it would be a good idea to kick a door in and steal firearms from these people's house. And I got caught. I got charged. And so I never made it to Afghanistan. Eventually I made it to Westville, but which is a correctional facility. That's where I did my tour of duty. But before I went there, my parents, I talked them into bonding me out of jail. And I was out for a couple days, and then my dad and me got in an argument, which he was in the right. My dad's always right somehow. I don't know how that works out. But again, there I was rebelling against authority. And so here's kind of when I really started, I guess, snowballing. I left my parents' house. I didn't have nowhere to go. I think I had about maybe $200 because I'd sold a flat screen TV I had at the time. So I had about $200. And again, I started, I guess I was harnessing all that bitterness, and I took that $200 and I went and I got a firearm, and I basically started kicking people's doors in and playing Army. It was maybe a couple weeks later, I had an apartment paid for here on Jefferson Street, right across from the Dream Center. Full of new stuff. It appeared I was doing well. I had everything. Started running scams on the internet. I had probably thousands of dollars in different accounts. I'm not going to go too much into that. And that's when the bath salts come out. And so I used to order them from China when they were legal. And so I had huge bags of them and planned to sell them and stuff. I broke my neck at this time too, so I had large scripts of pain medicine, which I sold. So I'm running on bond, and I'm functioning, living very well as I'm running from place to place because I just had quite a bit of money wherever I went. So I'm still good. I'm fine. But I'm doing all these bath salts. This one was called methylene dioxypyrovalerone. I don't know how I still remember that, but it was something I idolized. So I guess that's how I remembered it. And they keep you up for days. And this is, man, I had a really big wake-up call. I guess basically, I was distributing these to people for free, and, it's witchcraft. I would use it to manipulate people. I would use it to control people. And so I was, in fact, indeed practicing witchcraft. At the time, I didn't recognize it as that. And to take matters even further in my manipulation, I began peddling God's word. I'm not sure what to call it, but I was manipulating people through Scripture. And that's when things, God got my attention a little bit. A lot of it. It seemed to be, seemed to always happen after the third day I'd be awake. I remember the first time it happened, I was out back in the alley, and I'm just going to call it for what it is. Maybe different people have different opinions of what I saw, and, bless your heart. But I was in the alley, and I looked down the alley about a block away. I don't know what I was doing. I don't know, catching some air or whatever. But, I looked down there, and the first time I seen it, I wasn't scared because I didn't recognize what it was. And I was like, man, is that really there? But I look down, and I just see a silhouette. Only way I can really describe it to you is you see heat coming off a stove, and the air shimmers. And it was like there was a silhouette of a figure. It was definitely there. I could see it, but at the same time, it's like it wasn't there. And so I look, I do a double take, and I'm just kind of standing there for a minute staring at it, and eventually it starts walking towards me. And at this point, I'm like, I'm going inside, I'm going to turn Dr. Phil back on or something. And so... eventually that keeps happening. I'll be up on these bath salts for 7 days or something, and then I'll crash for about 12 hours and get up and do it again. I dropped down to 160 pounds. To give you a reference, I weigh about 205 right now, so I'm already kind of a skinny guy, but yeah, I look like death. And my landlord lived across from me, and he come over one night to get some rent, or no. I actually called him one night. I had my mom come over and drop off some Bible study stuff because I was manipulating and playing Fantasy World and pretending that God was going to save me from these charges that I'd been charged with and what have you, and was going to pray with my girlfriend at the time. She'd never been saved, and at this point, I was like probably legally insane, but I guess I was coherent. I was not gone to the point where I imagined all this, I assure you. So we're getting ready to pray. My mom left, and I thought there was a gas leak in the house. It smelled like natural gas. I'm not much of a handyman, so I looked at the stove and stuff, and I called the landlord, and he come over. And he could smell it too. Had the little gas meter, no gas leak. He said, what are y'all doing over here? And I said, oh, we're praying. He just kind of looks, his eyes get real big. He's like, maybe you should come stay at my house tonight. I said, no, we're fine. So he ends up leaving. And by the way, when I think back on it, the smell was sulfur. Um, when he left, there's like the air thickened. You could feel a weight all over you. And it wasn't just me. She could feel it. And you'd be sick to your stomach just standing in the apartment at that time. And so we went out back to try to get out of the house. And as soon as I went out, before maybe I'd have seen one or two of them, this time they were everywhere. I walked from Jefferson down to General Aluminum, and I couldn't even hold my eyes open. I was crying like a little baby. I was scared to death. But thinking back on it, God didn't let any of them touch me. I was still in God's hand at the time, but I guess when I think back on all of this, that's what I get. I'd made myself an enemy of God, because if you're not with them, you are against them. And I had even proclaimed myself an enemy of God at one time during my teenage years. And, I felt like I couldn't fit in and stuff, and so I decided that I was going to manipulate people into liking me. I took advantage of weakness. Any weakness I could exploit, I took advantage of. And that's who I was. Eventually, they did catch me. And thinking about it, this is a miracle. They caught me. We're looking for some other tall guy with black hair and glasses, but they found me. So the cops arrested me, and I had a half gram of dope in my wallet. And that would have been another charge. I'd probably still be in prison. So the cops looking through my wallet, I got it stuck in between two business cards, and he looks through it a few times, literally 3 times. He looks through it and shuts my wallet. I get to the jail, and there at the desk, they look through it, and my wallet's still going. I get to the where you put your clothes, they store your property, to the property room, and that guy looks through it, and nobody found it. And there's no explanation for that. That's as much as I'm going to explain, because I'm telling you, it was in there. So, that's a miracle of God looking out for me. So eventually I made my way to Westville Correctional Facility. And again, I'm still holding on to all this bitterness, and this is a place without compassion. Kindness is viewed as weakness. On top of that, I'm a very prideful person, and so that did not make my stay any easier. I ended up getting involved with the wrong people while I was there. So the whole time I was there, I continued to exploit weakness. I continued to prey on people. I got in a lot of fights. I was always fighting. That's what made me feel good. That's what kept me going. In there, it's a little different than your schoolyard fight. I mean, somebody's not getting up. I don't know. It just really made me not a very good person. Coming to visit with boot prints on my face, or either that, or I'm really hurting people badly. And all the fights I got in, I got high almost every day there. I didn't get a single write-up, not one. And eventually they dropped my level because of that, and went someplace a little nicer. I guess it kind of helped me wind down before I got home. I get home and I'm just a mess at this point. I'm a completely different person. I remember I was sitting at the dinner table, and my little brother, my baby brother, Brendan, it's not even a serious argument. I don't even remember what it was about, but just playfully, he called me a punk. And I just remember this hate come up in me, and I just wanted to grab him by his neck and choke him. And that's when I just kind of started realizing that something's wrong. You know, I'm having these kind of reactions to people I love, and you know, I wasn't just going through a bitter season in my life. I'd become a bitter person. You know, I never quite let go of that. I started drinking. I held a job. I did all that, blah, 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 productive citizen, but I was drinking at this time. It progressed to the point where I drank a fifth a day, pretty much. I'd drink a fifth of vodka a day, and I'd get up and I'd work my job. I'd work out. So things were good, or so I thought. Ended up with, actually, well, here's when my past all caught up with me, and the people I was involved with, we had a disagreement, and I decided that I was going to go and face my past. And so I remember me and my family had dinner at the Great Wall, and I got in my car that I'd just bought, and I went to a different town. Basically, I was going to go take a beating, you know, so I could get away from these people. And so I was out on a country road. I don't even know where it was. And it was probably 2 or 3 in the morning, and I stood in front of my car, in front of the headlights, and put my hands behind my back, and I just I surrendered myself. You know, these people would threaten my family, and so that's the only option I had. And I've never done that in my life. You know, I've never gone down without putting up a fight, and beat me really bad. I could feel the first few, felt my nose crack. You know, I knew something wasn't right. You know, and I know that God was there with me. I took a really merciless beating. My nose was shattered. My face was fractured. I never hit the ground at any point during all of that. And I know that wasn't me. If I'd have fell down, you know, I might have got beat to death. I remember looking down, and there's just huge puddles of blood on the ground, and I'm like, oh man, that'll come out of me. You know, it's like, man, you don't realize how fragile your body is sometimes. And my clothes looked like something from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Looked like I died in them. You know, it didn't stop there. They were just happened to be shooting methamphetamines at the time, so they were not in a reasonable state of mind. And so at this point, I was gone for probably a couple days, kind of held hostage in an apartment. And I'd pretty much given up. I didn't really care at this point. I didn't have really anything I thought to live for. I wasn't happy anyways, so I was pretty much in defeat. You know, I had resigned. I remember at one point during them couple days, I wound up in a bathtub with a shower curtain wrapped around me and a knife to my throat. And I had somebody asking me, why should I let you live? And I just kind of thought for a minute, and all I could come up with was, I don't know. You know, but God delivered me from them circumstances, and you know, thinking back on it now, you know, however tragic I might think that is, you know, or how much it hurt physically, or, you know, the ridicule. Man, everything happened during them 2 days. I got kicked, beaten, spit on continuously. It was horrible. And, you know, it's kind of crazy for me to think that Jesus went through, man, that's not even a drop in the ocean compared to what he went through for me. And that really blows my mind. But I made it back home, and, you know, I recovered, and pretty soon the shock wore off, and I went back to my ways. Started drinking again. At this point, there's a drop ceiling in my parents' basement with the tiles, and I'm smashing these fifths of vodka and I'm sticking them up in the ceiling because I don't want to take them upstairs and throw them away because I don't want my dad to find them. I ain't trying to hear all that, So I continue on my path and start chasing this girl, and she's got a drug addiction problem, so that didn't work out very good. It come to a point where my parents kicked me out again because I was drunk and tried to get out of the driveway and got stuck in the snow and blew the engine up in my dad's truck, and so my parents kicked me out again, and I wind up over at my aunt's house here in town by the bars and end up with a different girl. At this point, I start doing asphalt and stuff where I'm working now, and the drinking's not doing it anymore. I'm up to a fifth a day or more, and that's just to feel normal. It's not really to catch a buzz. I get up in the morning and I start drinking. I'm probably legally drunk before I start drinking when I wake up. And so I decide I'm going to get some pills because I used to do pills, and so I get a pill off this guy, and it's $80, and I show up to get it. I done waited all day, and he says, man, I pulled it up. I said, what? He had it in a syringe, and I was like, I just never thought I'd do it, but I was like, all right, go ahead. I'm gonna look away. And probably a week after that, I was hitting myself. I guess didn't really shock me that much. I guess I already knew how to insert IV and stuff from I was Combat Lifesaver certified, so I guess I basically felt that made me a doctor, so it was okay. I don't know. I was not in my right state of mind, so. So now I'm shooting up and I'm drinking. But I still think it's okay because I go to work every day. I'll go to work half drunk and outwork somebody younger than me. And nobody really cared too much, Asphalt, some of them aren't the cleanest people. So it was great. Still had good money, and I could do all the drugs I wanted, but I'm still empty inside. And at this point, I've had just enough God in my life to where I'm really miserable. Knowing that I'm not doing right. My grandma died. I'm a grandma's boy. I grew up at grandma's house, and that hit me pretty hard. Really went off the deep end. My grandma got pain medicine, and so shortly after she passed, I'm in the house and stuff, and man, I find boxes of this pain medicine, and so now I've got a seemingly unlimited supply for a while. I've got alcohol, I've got money, and started shooting meth, and I used to love to shoot meth, but it scared me because every time on the third day I'd get some visitors or something supernatural would happen, and some terrible things happen on the third day after I was up. I guess I don't have any cool stories about how I OD'd and they Narcaned me and saved my life because at this point when I was over at my aunt's, I didn't really party. I didn't hang out with people. I would sit in a room by myself and drink pretty much till I had alcohol poisoning. I would OD every single time I did heroin because of the amount of alcohol in my system. I used to sit in a parking lot over here south of town in an abandoned factory, and I would wake up half a day later after shooting. there's no doubt in my mind that I was probably dead numerous times and that God reached down and put the breath back in my lungs. Man, eventually I was so broken. If I could just have it to where I could sit in my room and drink for days and not even come out and talk to anyone. I just pretty much hated people at this point. I totally isolated myself. I've isolated myself my whole life. I've not really had friends, or, I denied myself of a childhood. Sometimes I feel like I don't even know how to socialize with people. I've really honestly not been around people. Even in prison, I didn't talk to anyone, really, except for when I had to. So this all led up to, eventually I thought I quit shooting up, and, I go into a bar and somebody offers me some meth, and I said, no, I don't have any money. And they say, well, here, I'm just going to give it to you. And okay, that was cool, I thought, because at the time, the girl that I was with told me she had a miscarriage and told me my kid was dead. That wasn't the case. That's a whole nother story, but so I start shooting this meth, and I'm up for probably 90 hours. And here comes my probation meeting. I've not been drug tested in over a year, so I thought I was good. I went in there, and I'm sure I was acting a little jittery. I mean, I've been up for 90 hours, and I've been paving for 2 of them days, so I ain't ate nothing, so I probably look like a wreck. He asked me, he said, hey, you going to pass a drug test right now? I said, yeah, no problem, because usually he'll ask me that, and then he won't give me one. So he gave me one. Before he pulled it out, I said, hold on, man. Hold on, back up a second. I got to tell you something. And so, I let him know that I was dirty, and, I went and failed a drug test for methamphetamines, amphetamines, marijuana, alcohol, and a couple other things. There's all kinds of stuff on there. At this point, I'm on 6 years of probation. I should be back in prison right now. I don't think the court system was very big fans of mine. The prosecutor, which, I'm not, she's doing her job, but I guess how she described it was that there was someone with military training running around with a firearm and stealing people's things. And, so at this point I'm thinking, there's no reason they shouldn't put me back in prison. But at this point I've been drinking a 5th of vodka a day for several years. I've been shooting anything I could get in a needle. Smoking cigarettes. I was a cigarette smoker. I went to church after I got in trouble. Basically like, oh, God, save me, help me, I'm in trouble. But I went to church, and this time it was different. I give up everything. I told him he can have the girls, he can have the drugs. I'll do anything. And I really meant it. And he lifted my addictions right off of me. People expect to see, they think of God's power, and you might think there's a flash of light over me or something, or the ground shook a little bit, but all true power's got to do is whisper. And at that point, I did not even realize that God had taken that burden from me. Honestly, I've not had a craving. I've not relapsed. I'm 123 days clean. This is the longest I've been clean. I'm 28 years old. This is the longest I've been clean since I was 14 years old. Not only that, but I remember one day I looked over on my dresser and there's 2 full packs of Marlboro Menthol sitting there, and I was like, oh, well, I guess you took that too. I quit smoking. Didn't even know I quit. I just kind of stopped smoking. Um, yeah, praise God. He's really done some miracles in my life. Um, I started coming over and I met David. I'm going to rewind a little bit. I've been in the Dream Center. I checked in there once when I was, somebody come and woke me up out of a drunken stupor at my parents' house and drugged me over there, and I filled my application out and I slept my alcohol off for a couple hours and I got up and left. I said, God, you ain't going to put me there. I ain't going there. And even when I sobered up, I met David. I was like, oh man, he's pretty cool. He's like, I was thinking maybe I'll go over there and catch some devotions and stuff, but I ain't gonna live there. I mean, them guys are kind of messed up. They're kind of weird, I don't want to be, So David gives me a call one day and says they need a night guy, and I didn't even think about it. I just come right out. I said, yeah, awesome. I'd be honored. Just thinking back on my life, man, it's crazy, the insanity, but I've been through pretty much, there's not anything any of you could bring up to me. Abusive relationships, getting beat, getting any kind of abuse. I've been through it. Cutting, anything. I've pretty much been through it all. And I wouldn't take any of it back, because now, I've got the opportunity to share other people's burdens. And, it's just, it hurts to see people, with their foot half in. I look everywhere and see people with their foot half in. Like, I was so close so many times throughout my life. And, man, I compare it to, I can relate to this way, when you want to accept God, but only part of them. It's like you see all them Army recruitment commercials, and they're running in all of them. They look really cool. They got cool uniforms, but they're running all the time. And it's like, man, I don't even like to run. Maybe I can sign up and they'll only make me do half the running. I can run half the time. You know what I mean? Man, it just don't work like that. It's either that or, I think I gave my life to God. I think I gave it all to him. And first time I get attacked, here I'm turning tail and running. And, I was thinking the other day, what would happen, first time a bullet snaps past a soldier's head and he runs back behind the wire and runs into the officer's room and goes, oh, man, they're shooting at me, and they threw this thing and it blew up and it killed a bunch of people. And I didn't sign up for this. And it's like, man, it's like there's another verse where Jesus said, who first builds a tower, without beforehand, assessing the cost, what it's going to cost. Because if you build the foundation and then you can't finish building the tower, people are going to mock you. You're going to look real silly. And, man, I've lived my whole life looking silly. And I've been so back and forth like a tug of war that, this time, I'm sure this time when I said I really wanted help, everybody just sitting there waiting like, man, when's it coming? When's he gonna go back? And, it hadn't happened this time. It's not gonna happen. God's got me. Amen. But it's a whole different kind of struggle now. I still struggle every day. Petty stuff too. I mean, I live in a house full of guys, and sometimes you guys get on my nerves a little bit, but I love you, and it's when them old emotions rise up, that's when God tells me I still got stuff to work on. But I'm truly blessed, and I'm really humbled to be a part of the Dream Center. I just want you guys to know that, man, whenever somebody asks me if I work at the Dream Center, I feel even guilty saying yes, because I'm just really humbled. I'm here to serve you guys. I'm not above you. I'm right here with you, and I'd do anything for you guys. Amen. Amen.
Bless you, brother.